But we aren't live streaming, so it's more informal, kind of laid back conversation tonight. Really looking forward to your input on how we have been doing and how we can do better. And like I said, Susan and Andy will do a presentation here to start off the workshop, and then we'll get into some the interactive piece following that with some sharing of ideas. So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And now I'll turn it over to Susan, who has the PowerPoint ready to go. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sean. And thank you everybody for showing up and joining us tonight. We really are interested in getting your opinion on where the town can really start moving forward with more digital services and really trying to leverage technology. Like Sean said, my name is Susan Chase. My colleague Andy Will is with me. We both work for a company called Perry Group, and we have been hired by the town to develop this digital strategy for them. I'm going to have a bit of a hard time seeing everybody because I'm in presenter mode, but certainly if you have a question, just shout out or raise your hand or something, and we'll try to moderate it so that we can address things right away rather than waiting to the end. It's not a very long presentation. Don't worry about that. It's mostly about getting some feedback tonight and having some conversations like Sean said. So just a little bit about Perry Group, because we always have to put our little bit in these kind of presentations when we have an audience. It seems to be a thing we do. Perry Group, we are a small consulting firm. We're actually sitting at about 20 people right now. We've grown quite a bit in the last few years. We've been in business for just 5 years, spun out of a previous company. Ben Perry, our boss, I guess, took it on and has taken us in new directions. We are focused solely on municipal and public sector clients. It's all we do. We're primarily based in Ontario, although we are branching out a little bit across Canada, but mostly it is in Ontario. Every one of the consulting team have worked for municipalities before in a senior management position. So we have a good understanding. We believe we bring a really good understanding to the table about how we can better leverage technology in municipal life. We do a lot of IT work, GIS, digital strategies like this one, IT organization design, service delivery reviews has become a big part of our business over the last couple of years. I've included a very small list of municipalities that we work with. You can take a look at that if you want. You can go to our website if you want. But the most important thing is we were thrilled to be called back by Tecumseh to do this project. We did a previous project with them to help them develop an IT strategic plan, really. So we took a review of their current services and helped them to develop a roadmap for taking it to the next level. Now what we're doing is digital strategy, which is really all about digital services and how we can improve service delivery to the customers. And that's where you come in. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love it if we could go around the virtual table here and you could tell me your name and why you're interested and why you joined in on this particular call. Sean, we've already met you, so I actually have Kevin up next. Kevin, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure, Susan. I'm Kevin. I'm sure the residents are saying, hey, we've never seen him around. And that's true. I'm not from Tecumseh, but I have been exploring the possibility of moving out there. And I did come across the digital strategy town hall because I am in digital strategy and transformation myself. I'm from Barbados in the Caribbean, so it's a lot warmer here where I am. But yeah, just looking forward to all the feedback and what's going on in Tecumseh.
It almost looks like Susan is frozen for a second. So if you can hear me, I will say, welcome, Kevin. I'll hop in and place Andy for a second. We'll just sort of roll with this as it happens right now here. Next up, and I know we all see screens in different orders right now. But it looks like I think we'll see Susan pop back on in just a second. Oh, she just lost power at her house. So
of course,
that's just figures, right? So if she wants to call back in a second, bear with me one sec. I'll ask her to call in because then I'll flip over and I'll bring the presentation up on my screen then.
Well, we can continue on with the introductions.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm Marg Evans. I'm the CAO for the town of Tecumseh. Welcome this evening. I work with Sean and I have the pleasure of serving Councillor Dowie and engaging with the consultants, and looking forward to everyone's contributions this evening.
Great. And why don't, again, just going around here, Councillor Dowie, you're next on my screen right now.
Well, thank you, Andy. Yeah, I'm Andrew Dowie. I'm the Ward 1 councillor for so it's northwest quadrant of the community. I have a bit of a background in IT somewhat, even though I'm a civil engineer. I have a second degree in what's called computing technology. So I learned C++ and a number of other, a couple other languages, but I haven't actually used them since I graduated. I've always had the interest though in advancing, our technological use. I use a lot of technology, databases online, because the library is one that I'm always hitting up, and electronic services. I signed up for ePost as soon as it launched, etc. So I really would like to see as much progress as we can make, because in times like these, it comes in handy, and we don't know what the future holds. I think it's very timely that we're taking this on in the town of Tecumseh, and looking forward to seeing what comes.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Darren?
Yeah, hi, my name's Darren. I have a bit of an IT background as well. I'm a broadcast engineer with a local media company. So I sit on some committees outside of this, but most notably the Rural Broadband Advisory Committee with Sean and others on council. And we're working at trying to get some better bandwidth internet to some of the rural communities in Tecumseh. And in my background with my work with the media, we also, we're really involved in a lot of the technology involved with the social media platforms and stuff. So, I certainly have some ideas, and so I like the fact that Tecumseh is moving forward technology-wise. So, I'm here to kind of see what's going on and what we can do in the future.
Excellent. Great. Welcome. And Amy?
Hello, I'm Amy. I live close to Town Hall. I think I'm in Andrew's, sorry, what's the name? Section. I have a music degree. I'm the non-tech person. I've worked with people for a long time as a support worker, many, many years, but I'm just here to learn.
That's excellent. That's great. I may as well, Dave and Jose, did you also want to just introduce yourselves? By the way, it's almost like staff and consultants right now are outnumbering the public. So from a public perspective, this is a great opportunity for you to get your opinion voiced here. But Dave?
I'm Dave Doyen. I'm a systems analyst at the town of Tecumseh. I kind of do the nuts and bolts of a lot of the IT work and deal with frontline support. So I'm just kind of interested in getting a perspective of what the residents are looking for. And I think it would be great to have that additional information as to our direction and our emphasis of where we go forward.
Terrific. And Jose?
Okay, I'm Jose Florian. I work as a GIS technician at the town. As a group, GIS group, we are really interested in a digital strategy that shows the real value of the GIS in order to serve the public and the organization. And we are really interested in doing that. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Yeah, and as I said, I'm sort of hopping in. So as Susan said, I'm Andy Will. I've been with the Perry Group just for a short period of time. I was in municipal sector for just over 30 years. And I've sort of hopped it along a bit because I was in technology for most of that time. But before that, I was in recreation, and I've worked with transit, public works, a whole number of departments. So I've sort of seen it through from the user perspective to the provider perspective and everything in between. Susan sent me a quick note. Sure enough, power is out in her area. So that can happen to any of us anywhere. So initially she was going to make the presentation. I don't mind making the presentation. I will. I'm going to do double duty here though, because I was also planning on taking some of the notes. So if it appears that I'm looking away from you as you're talking, don't take it personally. It's just going to be part and parcel. And I see Sean's pulled out his pen and paper right now. So one way or another, we'll make sure we're capturing things here. I'm just going to flip over to the presentation Susan had again, and I'll get it into the right page. But bear with me for 1 second and we'll get there. And I know that she was going to try calling in as soon as she can get onto. Sean, I believe Susan is there by phone.
Yeah.
Let me just launch the presentation here. Bear with me, folks. Great. Can everybody see the presentation now? Excellent.
Yep. Excellent.
Good. We're back on track then. So we already got past this slide. Let me just go on here a little bit. And about the background that we've got. Susan, are you there?
Still showing her as muted. Just gotta try and get her online there. She is online, but her line is still muted.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let me just keep going. And it's just really, you know, over time, I think we're all fully aware of this. Customer expectations have changed all across the board. And you know, especially over the past 2 years, we've seen such an acceleration in services to digital and online that it's no longer the exception. It's more about the rule. It's what we've come to expect in how we receive services. Whether it's the Amazons, the Netflix, the Googles of the world, we're all very familiar with those today. You know, most Canadians own a smartphone and 88% of Canadians bank online. So there's a lot of drive for us to go digital in our service delivery. So with that in mind, that's really at the background of a lot of what we're trying to do right now. When we look at the banking sector, they've led in a lot of this and the Amazons of the world. But the nice thing when you look at those is if you think, you know, even going back 15 years ago, part of your service was always, you could do a service online, but part of it was always about going into the bank to finish that transaction. And they've now taken themselves to the point where for most transactions you do at the bank, you can do it entirely from home, whether it's a contract or anything else. Checking was probably one of the most convenient ones, and now checkings are even going away in favor of, you know, money transfers and everything else that we get to that way. Digital in government, it has taken a little longer to get up to speed. This was a quote from a couple of years ago, but it really holds very true. There's no difference between digital service delivery and service delivery. Today, everything is going digital. So if governments do not recognize this, then any service strategy is flawed at the concept phase. And it's really that all worldwide, you will see that's the way governments are going. Even if you go, the Netherlands have even passed certain laws that legislate that certain services have to be in a digital format as they go. So we're getting there in Canada, I find. And I think we're all even familiar now with the province is all the license plate stickers are online, and they tried a few other things. They tried the kiosks. They got rid of the kiosks. They realized online was the right path to get most traffic in and through on that service level right now. When we look at what Tecumseh has to offer right now, there are a number of services online available to residents today. And a lot of what we've been looking at is how do we make that a consistent experience across all the services that are delivered. When we think about what customers expect in general, really from a perspective of a customer, you want to try and achieve self-service if you can. You want to make sure it's a simple user experience. Think of it now as, when I think even 5 years ago in technology, if you were ever to try a new application, it usually either came with training or a user manual. Now we're at the point where you get your cell phone, you load up an app, and you're not even expecting that there will be an instruction with it. Intuitively, you try and understand how to work with those applications. So the need to drive stuff to a point where it provides a simple user experience becomes paramount in how we deliver service. It has to be intuitive. We're also expecting it to be fast and responsive. Just not only in the nature of the performance of what you're working with, but if you are able to put in a application quickly into an organization, you're going to expect to get a response back or some form of response, whether it's an automated email or something, in relatively short order. The whole ability for webs or apps has become a big thing. We'll see a little later on, but one thing I mentioned is even last year on the Tecumseh website, I think it's about 46% of those that access the website accessed it through a cell phone. So if people are using those, you have to be able to at least provide the service in a format that people are looking at. And the notion that it can be available on just about any device. As long as the device is current, there's not a standard device people are using these days. So we have to make sure it can uniformly go across. And a big thing is anytime, anywhere. And it's the whole notion, the value in us going online is that not only for are the people that are working in the evenings or have off hours able to access service, but it just opens up the channel that everybody can get to the services they need to when they can and how they want to. Susan, are you back online there?
I am, but look at, I'm going to turn my video on. All right. Told you it was snowing, I guess.
Yeah. Did you want to take over on the presentation or would you like me to keep going?
You're on a roll, Andy. You keep going. I'll pick it up when it's time.
Excellent. Some of the key digital trends we're seeing in municipalities, though, are some new features coming out to help enhance the customer experience. So the whole notion of collaboration. Right now, we're all online, different engagement tools you'll see help with that. Process digitization, and that's not as apparent to the end user out front, but it's what helps enable that service getting to the users out front. And that is the whole notion that if someone fills out a form online on the site, it's making it all the way through to the back end. The staff that are working in the back are able to manage it there, and then it's going back to the front. So there's a service automation that's going right through that's connecting all the pieces together. The ability to provide the services that we have as a municipality in a digital format and to get to a service design point where they can be easily consumed by everybody, that they are designed with the user in mind and having the service design focused that way. That they're available on the mobile, and we already mentioned this, but it's just mobile is everybody's first go-to these days for when you're browsing. It's if you need more, you usually turn over to your laptop or your tablet that way. In the back and to the front, and that's where you'll see a lot of open government and open data, is the whole notion of utilizing this information to better provide the services and to make more informed decisions. So most of us are familiar with Google Analytics, and just what that can bring about is understanding the client base better, but also for Tecumseh, it's going to be an assistance in determining what services are best leveraged online and how to best hone in on what you want. optimizing search so that if you see that people are always searching for certain topics, do you need to better position that information on the website so that people can get to it? All those pieces. Community involvement and digital literacy. So Councillor Dowie, you mentioned the libraries, and libraries are a very big source in most communities for enhancing and improving digital literacy and making accessible digital channels that may not be available elsewhere. Community involvement, obviously, you know, I think everybody has adopted in a great way to being able to conduct business and continue municipal government through council meetings, through even interactions like this, through digital and online channels. And if it wasn't, you know, if it wasn't COVID, just even the whole notion of weather. Susan is sitting in a darked out room right now, but it, you know, all these things would be more physical barriers that we would get into before. And now with the digital channels, we can open them up and hopefully enable more people to participate. The notion of digital economy and incubation is becoming larger and larger. So that's where you'll hear about incubation or innovation centers. That's, you know, digital economy. I think everybody's heard at least a little bit about Bitcoin these days or about any of the cryptocurrencies and just the role it will have to play as we move forward. And of course, smart and IoT, so Internet of Things. So how do we utilize, do we have sensors in place? Are the sensors giving us the right information? Do sensors allow for emergency vehicles to move through lights in a particular way? There's a lot of uses and a lot of practical uses you get into with sensors that you could within a municipality just to enhance the services that are provided. So what you told us, and what you told us isn't about the, I will suggest the four of you or the audience that we have on here right now, but as Sean and as Tecumseh has received feedback from different sources, we've got a number of pieces of information in that we've already heard about. Preferences, majority prefer to conduct business with the town through email or online channels. You know, next is directly by phone, and then in-person interactions are still important, but they're not the primary channel people are looking for. By the way, Sean, if you feel like stepping in on any of this as I'm speaking to it, feel free as well, please. Okay. Website, tecumseh.ca is the most preferred source of information. And then we get the emails, the newsletters, Play Speak, and connecting directly with my counselor. So there's different sources that we're reaching out, but you can tell this is really starting to shift as to how people are looking and where their preferences are for working with a municipality. Services most accessed, recreation programs, getting information via the website, parks, trails. I don't need to read all of these, but it's just the notion that the services now or getting information is, the web is a primary source and a primary tool for being able to exchange information quickly in from the convenience of one's own living room, wherever you want. And so it becomes, pushing to get the services through this channel are just becoming a very natural and obvious way of getting some of these things. Barriers to online service, we can, there's a lot of different ways you can get barriers to online service, but whether it's, concerns about security, whether it's, well, in the case of Tecumseh, and, and we talk about the rural broadband issues, it could be just the notion about whether or not someone can actually get an internet connection, or, for Susan's case, whether you've got power in the neighborhood going on as a result of various things. Or just even the notion of lacking digital literacy and not comfortable with technology. One of the things I heard a few years ago, because we'll usually revert or start saying, well, seniors are less likely to use technology or to want that sort of thing. those with accessibility challenges, those in sort of any position where, you know, they're economically disadvantaged, have issues with technology. Those aren't the barriers. The barriers are those other things that are getting in the way of getting there. Because realistically, in a lot of instances, you know, services that can be delivered online can assist a lot of the vulnerable populations in a whole other series of ways we don't even think about. If someone has difficulty stepping away from their desk to get to an office while the office is open, being able to get to the service 24/7 is a big advantage. If you can get the basic sort of barriers brought down, which is getting people trained and getting them some level of access to the service, it becomes very, very convenient for most of the population to use online services. It never will replace the in-person, but it's a good way to supplement to make sure that people can get the services they need. So I think with this, Susan, were you going to start asking some questions, or did you want to, what services do you want to see online?
Well, what this screen here is showing, Andy, and great job, by the way. Poor Andy wasn't quite prepared to do that. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're still dealing with it here, so I'm just going to keep my camera off because I haven't gone to find a candle yet. What this slide is showing us is we asked you about the services that you would like to see online, whether they're being offered or not, your preferences for the services that you wanted. And right at the top was really all about more online payments, and as well to be able to make purchases online. You're interested in that. You're very interested in more permits and licensing applications online. So whether it was, you know, a dog license or some other kind of license or permit, having those online and having improved access to that. You're also came up a few times about service requests, but even more importantly than just being able to put a service request in online, which you can do right now with Report a Problem, right? But tracking that request. You want to know the status of it. Where is it? When is it going to be resolved? How am I going to know that it's getting done? I mentioned forms as well. Another thing that came up a few times was I summarized this word, account management and inquiries. You want to be able to go online and see what your tax account balance is right now, perhaps when the upcoming due date is, and ask the questions about it. You know, can I get a tax certificate online? Can I get access to my account online, make my payments online? So the whole thing was of interest. It was also mentioned about site plan applications online, and you do, with the survey respondents, definitely like the public engagement, being able to do things like tonight and webinars. And another thing that came up, interestingly, with both the public and it also showed, we surveyed staff as well, and they mentioned it, the ability to chat with staff and, you know, have conversations. And it's not just, you know, with your local counselor, the elected official, but it's also, you know, with staff. Maybe you've got some questions you want to find out about bylaw enforcement. Maybe you want to find out what's going on in the world of recreation, that sort of thing. So you want to be able to have this opportunity to chat with staff. Okay, we can go to the next slide.
Thank you. Do you want me to take it back for a sec, Susan?
Sure.
And my apologies. Again, this is my eyes going to two different screens, so I was looking forward a slide here as well. Looking back in 2021, so looking at the statistics as to what people are actually accessing. Interestingly enough, the most common hit on the Tecumseh.ca site is using the webcams. They're very quick little snippets going onto the site and taking a look, but it tends to be at the top of the list for site hits. You've also got, obviously, hitting Tecumseh.ca is right there as well. But then beyond that, it's looking for employment, garbage and recycling news, things to do. In the winters, it's about arenas, and in the summers, it's about pools. Contacting us, where you can get a hold of people. And obviously, especially in these times, COVID has been a high information topic, and as well council, so getting the council information. With that as well, how are people accessing the site? And you'll see along the bottom here, so my number was a little off. I was flipping numbers around, but mobile is almost sitting at 50%. So most people are coming through their phone to utilize the site. Desktops were at 46 and tablets were at just over 4%. So that's just an overall mix of where we're seeing information come in and out and how people are utilizing it. But it gives you a good insight into where you need to focus some of the efforts. So with that in mind, that then ends the preamble to give you a bit of background on what we wanted to collect and work on tonight. Susan, did you want to take over the brainstorming and I'll take over the
Sure. Yeah.
describing?
At this point, just want to quickly ask, does anybody have any questions about really the context for this evening or any of the findings that we presented here? No? Okay.
Nope.
We do have another attendee here, Rochelle. If you have any questions, Rochelle, just type it in the chat box or the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And I can relay it to the group. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, so now we're going to get into the brainstorming side of this this session tonight. We really do want to get some feedback from you, some ideas. Andy's going to bring up a different screen. It's just an online whiteboard that we like to use. But we're looking for more ideas. You gave us some ideas on how to enhance customer service, and that's what this list here is. And no surprise, some of your ideas line up very nicely with what your preferences were, what you'd really like to see. What was interesting is some of the things like, I really like the top two, actually. You want even more information through social media. I like the second one, better clarity of information provided. You don't want government speak. You want to be able to understand what you're being told. And we as government are quite notorious at doing that. We think everybody talks our same language and nobody does. We have to get better at understanding that. But it's very important. So I thought that was a really good bit of feedback that we got. One of the other things you wanted to know was really current information. And one of the examples that was provided was, for example, how many people are at a sports field or at the pickleball court, that sort of thing. So is it worth my time heading over, or is it too crowded and too much of a lineup? So it's really not worth my time. So how can we use that? I think I already mentioned to you online tax information, online forms, online payments. So we're aware of that and moving towards that. The other interesting thing that came up was online notifications of road closures, construction projects, power disruptions. Still waiting to find out what's going on up here. But, you do get some road closure notifications and that on the website. So really what we heard through the survey was you're interested in more. What's on the next slide?
Do you want me to move the whiteboard over, Susan?
Yes, please. I think with this in mind, these are some of the ideas. If anybody has any ideas for enhancing those or more of those. So what we've done here, this is a whiteboard, and I hope everybody can see it okay. On the left-hand side, we've put the top 10 services, just as a reminder, that you said were top 10 that were important. Well, not necessarily you, but you know what I'm saying. The respondents said were important to them. And those ideas from the survey that came up. And we're interested from you, participants tonight, what big digital opportunities or priorities do you see for Tecumseh? And then perhaps why is it important to you? So does anybody have any ideas? And all we're going to do is we've got sticky notes here, virtual sticky notes, and we're going to fill them out and keep track of everything as you say it. So if anybody would like to start. Who do we have? Councillor?
You brainstorm. You had talked about the lacking digital literacy or just not comfortable with technology. I'm thinking of the elderly and I'm thinking of adults with intellectual disabilities who I had worked with for a long time. How can we address making things accessible or more accessible to those populations?
Right. That's a really good point. And it's not just accessible being able to access our documents and that we might publish, but it's actually accessing the technology and the services because they're just as capable of using online services. We just got to make sure they have the tools that suit them, right?
Correct.
It's a really good point. Thank you.
Amy, can I ask, is there anything in particular you were thinking that way?
I'm just thinking ease of use. So you had that slide with the renewal for the license plate sticker, I think, at the beginning. I actually recently helped my 93-year-old grandmother renew her sticker online because she wasn't able to do it herself. she's just not used to all the hoops and all the different steps to have to do something. So I guess simplicity is part of the answer. I don't know what else the answer is. I'm not the tech person. I'm just putting that out there. So
it's a really good point. I was the last election, so this was a few years ago now. I was working the election, and it was an online election where I was working it, all online, right? So we had set up different stations and that people could come if they didn't have access to technology. Anyway, I was helping a 92-year-old man use the computer so he could place his vote. He had never ever touched a mouse before. I actually said to him, "Okay, well, if you put your hand on the mouse and point it over here," he's, "What do you mean a mouse?" Like literally, what do you mean a mouse? Because he had never touched it before. I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's where we are." Anyway, we got him through. He was able to vote. He was very happy and very excited about it. And he told me he's actually going to have to get himself one of these computers to learn how to use it. I thought that was pretty cool, but it really shook me. Like, oh, he didn't even know what a mouse was. Of course he wouldn't. Why would he know that, right? If he had never touched one before. It's a really good point. Ease of use, simplicity, and let's not assume they do know.
Sometimes pictures are a good way for people with disabilities to identify different subjects or information, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Darren, I think you're talking, but you're on mute.
Sorry, no, my son just came in from his
okay,
hockey and
sorry.
he was talking to me at the same time. Sorry.
Darren, while you're unmuted, any suggestions?
Well, I love what you had suggested about the ability to check your tax roll online and have that ability through the website. It was actually one of the suggestions when I was having dinner with my wife and we were talking about this meeting coming up. And I mentioned about, being able to pay your taxes. She said, "We already pay our taxes online. We get the bill in the mail. We go on our online banking. We generate a payment. We're done." And I said, "Yeah, but we don't have the ability to go and look at our tax records and pull up, what do we owe? When is the due date? That kind of information." So, I like that they're looking at moving towards some e-commerce solutions on the website to the ability to do that. We booked one of the rooms at a local arena for my son's birthday a couple of years ago. We looked at going skating. We'll just book one of the community rooms. So the ability to go onto the website, see when the room's available, make the bookings, make your payment through the website, that kind of information, I think it makes it a lot quicker than having to call in or having to go anywhere to make your payments. So I think the e-commerce stuff added to it would certainly help.
Yeah, that's an important part of this, right?
I would love to see a better solution for when we call into the main line. I think it's the 735-2184 number. Is that correct, Andrew? You almost have to know who you want to talk to to be able to get to who you want to talk to. There's different numbers to push for different parts. And first time user, it was really difficult. I didn't even know what a clerk was.
Yeah. So what about, in addition to that, I agree. What about if you could call in a number and no matter who you were talking to, that's who you asked the question of?
Yeah, I think that would help.
Yeah, and then they could essentially triage it and then forward you to whoever, if there's somebody else.
Like Windsor has with their 311 system, you make one phone call and they kind of help you find the right person.
Right, exactly, yeah. So Andy, maybe 311 like? Oh, okay, that's better. One-stop call. Yeah, really good idea. Any
Kevin,
other?
not to put you on the spot, but you said you work with digital and you've been looking at Tecumseh's site. So do you have some thoughts right off the top?
Just to correct that, yeah, I'd be looking at Tecumseh as a place to live. Thoughts right now, no. My digital strategy and transformation expertise is more in financial services. Just trying to get a lay of the land here. A little bit nervous when I heard that there are parts where the internet, is a little spotty. So that's a little concerning. But no, on suggestions so far, no, just observing really. Thanks.
Terrific. And Councillor Dowie?
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I've got a couple of thoughts, and I guess I give that perspective of someone who gets a fair amount of outreach. The one, I guess I'll echo what Amy had mentioned, that I've heard a lot of frustration over the years about not knowing who does what, and without knowing who does what department does what, you can't really connect to anybody, and it becomes a frustrating experience. So having, whether it be outsourced or a customer service line, I think having a live person is the way to really address that. And I wouldn't leave it just on the phone. Actually, just mentioning the government speak on social media, I think that almost encourages negativity as well. If we have a front person, like someone with a name and a face, who is a real person, then I think that might change the tone a little bit. So something more positive, that, what some companies do is they put the name of the person or the initials of the person at the end. I'd almost go one better and say, hey, this is customer service manager. I'm the person who's going to help you resolve your issue. And even though it won't take away the negativity, I think when it's face to face or person to person, I've always felt that lowers the temperature quite a bit, and that's something that I think could be beneficial, to have that person with the identity who's participating. The other one that I think residents get kind of frustrated with is actually where they think it's government and it's not, but they feel we have a role to play. So mentioning power disruptions, I've got a Twitter feed, and Essex Power used to have an RSS feed that I tapped into. So as soon as it came in, I was able to automatically republish it, so my constituents knew that there's a power outage. Now they've taken that away, and so I only know there's a power outage when I go manually check their Twitter feed. So I understand this wanting to own the information, but by not spreading it far and wide, it means a lot more people miss it, and that amplifies the aggravation that people have. And I think, just whether it's Essex Power or the different utilities, when they're out there with fiber optic, not knowing who's doing what, who to call about the hole in their yard because it's not obvious, and that's what I found really gets people upset, that they get a runaround. They don't seem to find anybody who has knowledge of what's actually happening, even though it's on municipal property, and it's something that the public, I'd say rightfully, would think that there's some sort of regulation or some sort of interaction with the municipality when these things happen. So those are the items that I'd say are the highest demand that I certainly would like to improve upon as part of the strategy.
Thank you, Councillor. I think you made a couple really good points. Well, they're all really good points, but a couple that really resonated with me. It seems to me that the local municipality is always the front line. It's the local municipality who people call first when there's any kind of issue. So being able to retweet or reissue a lot of these messages is super important, and it's about that one-stop call and that one-stop source of credible information that we really want to try and grow. Thank you very much for that. Does anybody else have anything any ideas, opportunities that they'd like to, just ideas? Everybody's staying on mute.
Susan,
yes.
If you don't mind, I've got a couple of other thoughts, and that this is maybe less of a priority, but I'd say now some of our archival information understanding that we share it with the county, it is very hard to find that archival information. There isn't a table of contents, there isn't a search function that is reliable. And it's not very user friendly. We've had the same software since at least 2014, and it hasn't changed. And I know it's out of our hands, but it's something that certainly I flag. I find it's a heck of a time for me to find old minutes, old reports, etc. I just have to try and guess and open a lot of documents to find what I'm looking for.
Right.
I think
Doesn't
I
it
found the
look
same
like
thing,
it-
Andrew. Yeah, it was the same thing when you go onto that website where all the archives are. If you know the date that it was that council meeting took part or whatever, it's a little easier. But if you're kind of going back, when was the last time this was addressed or that was addressed, it's difficult.
Yeah,
Oh, good. Thanks,
and-
Darren. I was just going to ask if anybody else had been experiencing the same thing. So good.
Yeah, and one other item, and this is more maybe of again less visible, less demand for it, but one that I think is worth throwing in there is this matter of open data, where people will they want to create their own applications and create just they're an app of their own. I know there are always these questions about who owns the data. I think that was one that came up when Tecumseh had its own web app. If we were, as counselors, if we were to record data, do we own it or does the town own it? Can we reproduce it for our own political purposes? And so I understand that there's just a general discussion about that, but we know if you have GIS software, you can make some pretty neat looking maps on your own and fixate on just what's most interesting to you, and really transcribe or fulfill a set task with all that geospatial data, and being able to eliminate the stuff that's not relevant and just manipulate it. I know there's an appetite for it. I'm not going to pretend that it's widespread, but it's out there. And I think there's opportunity for progress there as well. Yeah,
I agree. One of the greatest beneficiaries really of open data programs are local businesses. The kind of information that they can get that can really improve not only their business, but maybe, a better understanding the community, that sort of thing. I think it's a really big thing. And there's enough guidelines in place right now about protecting personal data, understanding what data can't be shared and what data can be shared. It's a good idea. Sorry, Amy, did you want to add to that?
I was trying to figure out what GIS software is. I had to Google.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's spatial property data, property related data, mapping, all those things, geography like. But when you consider municipalities' business, most business is related to a piece of property. And that's why this kind of technology is so very important to local government.
I wasn't able to access a survey before of my property. I was told that nothing like that exists. Yeah. It's in, if you go to other jurisdictions who might, like the city of Windsor, for example, a very mature GIS system, you can actually go online and get all that information right there, right?
Yeah. I mean, for Windsor, it's very, I'm not saying it's limited. You can see the property lines, but in terms of the actual survey that's been registered with the land registry office, to my knowledge, that's not being shared. I know the municipal staff do have it or have access to it from getting it from the land registry office. But I know there's an argument too there with the land surveyors themselves. They're not too keen on their service being offered for free when they own it, right? So it's anyway, I know that's happening just as an aside. So I know there's a bit of pushback on that particular item.
Sure, there's legalities around it for sure that have to be addressed, but it's a really good point about open data. Okay, anybody else have any other ideas? Sorry, was that your list, Councillor? I don't want to cut you off. If you have what you do, yeah, okay. Anybody else have any other ideas?
Yeah, while we're at it, I just, as opposed to the GIS software that Andrew mentioned, the town of Tecumseh does have a really good one. You said it might
Yes,
not be
I do.
exact. I threw the link in the chat if anybody wants to take a look at it. But the other thing would be, as you put in your sticky notes, and would be bylaws. I think that's one of the things that I go to the town to look at, is to look up bylaws. There's been a lot of questions, you know, you'll see things on social media and some of the Facebook groups and whatnot about, you know, can you do this in Tecumseh? Can you do that in Tecumseh? What's the rule? And it's a great resource to be able to go there and quickly look up any bylaw that the town has. And then along with that would be a request, some sort of form online to request bylaw enforcement. So if you have a neighbor who has beat up old cars all over their lawn and, you know, whatnot, and you were looking up, is this against the bylaw, and you find that, and then maybe put in a request to have a bylaw enforcement officer take a look. I know we do have that through the phone system that we could call in and request that, but through something online as well. That kind of stuff is, I think, important to the residents.
That's a great idea. And you're right, I will build on, the town does have an excellent GIS system, quite robust, quite a bit there. More can be done with it for sure. So that's what we're looking at with this particular project, is what more can we do?
I learned a lot about even my own property when I went through it and looked at it,
Yeah.
and specifically how much of the front of my property is actually town right away. I was quite surprised.
That's never a good thing to find out, is it? Okay.
So I had a few, Susan.
Oh, please.
I like the idea of enabling as much sort of self-service as possible through the website, so that, and I think a number of these little post-it notes speak to that, really, being able to find archival information, being able to request bylaws, the ability to look up bylaws online, and one-stop source of information. And, you know, I'm wondering about the possibility also of a portal, and I may not be using the right terms, but the ability to have an account, a citizen has an account with the town, and then they can access their own information. They can pay their dog tags or whatever else online.
Right.
They can do their business with the town when it's comfortable for them to do their business with the town, and they've got a secure line in, and it's all about their relationship with the town. So I think, you know, and if they have a question or a concern, they can enter it through that as well. So I think that, you know, that might be something worthwhile exploring. We may not be there yet, and certainly moving towards the new customer service model, we'll have growing pains as well, but that's something that I am interested in. I also really like the feature. It's on the City of Barrie's website, and I did email Sean about this. Now I've forgotten the name of it, but it's essentially an opportunity through their website to provide council with their idea, you know, their bright idea for the town, or a question, or something that they want the town to pursue. And how Barrie has it structured, and of course they're much bigger than Tecumseh, is that if the person posts the idea, and they have to put their name to it, and they get up to 500 supporters within the community, that then the municipality would investigate that and see if it's something that can be done within the city. You know, if it's within their jurisdiction, and if it's not within their jurisdiction, somebody explains that to the person, so that we're not, you know, they're not soliciting support for something that the community has no jurisdiction over. So, you know, that I think is kind of a nice way for the municipality to get feedback, or get some people thinking about what they would like to see done, or things that they like to see pursued by the community, how it may want to grow and develop, or what have you.
Right.
But not, you know, chasing every idea. It has to have some amount of support within the community before the town would put resources to investigating it.
Right. So is it the sort of thing that if I felt a new tennis court, for example, needed to be built. I could put that idea forward with the right number of supporters. That kind of idea?
It wouldn't necessarily, it could be a facility, it could be a cultural event, it could be, a change in the way, information is made available. It could, like, if you go on the Berry site, you'll find it. There's all kinds of different things.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Mark. Did you have another idea there too?
No, I think those were kind of my main ones. I was kind of hoping to put forward this evening.
Great. Excellent ideas. Okay, anybody else want to share an idea? Or we'll move on to our next question. We can always come back if an idea comes up, no worries. Just watching what Andy, oh, he's making all neat and tidy.
I just have to clean things up before I go here. That's all. There we go.
Okay. So our next question is, this is really about the approach. Are there things that we really need to be aware of or be careful of as we become more digital? And I think, Amy, you brought up a few things earlier about people who might have challenges, whatever that challenge might be, accessing what might be put out first thing type of thing. So we have to be definitely aware of abilities, but also accessibility, even just to the internet and everything. Obviously, that's a very important thing. Are there other things that we really should be aware of as we approach this?
Absolutely. The need to protect personal data. I mean, we've all heard so much in different websites about data breaches and personal data being compromised. And as we move anything towards online, there becomes that responsibility that we have to protect the data that we gather.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. I mean, that's just got to be part of any process that we're doing, right? Is recognizing personal data and protecting
it. We do it through our media stuff with, any of our lists that we have, or people who subscribe to anything. They're giving permission to subscribe to something. They're not giving us permission to share that information with anyone. So you have to really be careful with the data that you have and make sure it's well protected, encrypted, and all that other fun stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Excellent point. Anybody else have anything? What should we be aware of or just be really careful about as we approach this whole thing?
Well, I guess a couple come to mind for me. One is the internet's forever. Whatever shows up, it must be accurate and for good, bad, or indifferent, because it's one screen capture away from never being able to live it down if there's a mistake.
Yeah.
The other is kind of going back to, I'd say, your point about government speak. We had an issue this summer that I know I was. We had a false recounting of events that went viral, and I know I begged for a response because it wasn't. People were getting the wrong impression. I was hoping that the record could be set straight, but I think our response did more harm than good. When we were trying to address it, I'd say because of the government speak, it didn't really deny what the false rumor was, and but I guess reading it as someone administrative would read it, I could see why it was written that way. So so I guess and there was a lot of abuse given to the staff, Sean and Leslie and the others who were involved with the Facebook page. So I very much I guess it was just a learning moment, telling moment that it's sometimes I don't know, you need to get information out, but there's a better way, and I wish I could, and I think having an individual be the spokesperson would help to tone it down a little bit. But anyway, that's just the so certainly that this one jumps to top of the list. The next one too is the investing too much in a given platform. We've seen what happened to MySpace and and even MSN Messenger, ICQ. Like, I'm dating myself now, but I think the days of downloading apps are coming to an end. We're going to be far more web-based, and actually one of the reasons why I haven't practiced in my one degree is because back in 2000 when I signed up, the thought was industry was going to create its own software, and became far cheaper to just buy something off the shelf and work through a cloud. So our vision for technology changes, and even BlackBerry just went offline, and it was riding high only not too long ago.
Yeah,
so I guess
sorry.
Yeah, so just like this is a huge one where we be mindful of any investments that it's got a shelf life. Technology is ever evolving, and we're going to have to replace it, in a shorter period of time than maybe our more our more hard assets. I look for the better way to put it, but yeah, we're going to have to go through more technology than we would have our electronics and whatnot in the past.
Yeah, the days of the 10-year life cycle for technology are long gone. It's just changing too rapidly. So we have to be a little bit quicker on the uptake. One of the challenges that I often find is the 2-3 year procurement cycles. Well, by then it's ancient history and I don't want it anymore, right? Something better's come along. So we have to be able to acquire and implement faster, but recognize it might be for a shorter timeline. So how can we get the best bang for our buck, get what we need out of it, and then move on to the next one, and keep that keep that iterative growth going, really, right? But it is about sustainability. I also like your point, Councillor. I think it really does come to that government speak in our efforts to become more transparent and more open. We still need to move forward with caution. So
I think it goes without saying, but to ensure respect, I find that sometimes digitally we are less respectful with one another, and maybe that just needs to be a rule.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Amy. Anybody else have any thoughts on what we need to be aware of as we move forward? I mean, it's easy to come up with ideas. It's easy to come up with solutions, especially, quick fixes and that sort of stuff, but it's these cautionary notes that we really want to be aware of.
Susan, just picking up on something Amy said earlier with the yellow stickies was the risk of leaving people behind. So those that aren't digitally savvy or able to, operate in the digital world. Or I had a good example today. I was walking through the front lobby. Town hall is still closed to the public until Monday. The gentleman came up to the door and kind of was reading the signs and looked confused. And I said, "Can I help?" He said, "I'm just here to get a dog tag." And I said, "We're not open until Monday. I don't think I can do that right now, but you can go online and do it. You can renew it and they'll mail you the dog tag." "No, I'll come back Monday," with this $20 in his hand. So this is great and it's convenient for a majority of the population, and that'll change over time. But back to Amy's stories about those that just have no capability of operating in that realm, it's important to know that we still have to offer many of these services to some extent the way we used to do it, to service all of our residents.
It's a really, really good point, Sean. And even though, Andy and I are in the business of promoting technology and moving things digital and all that, we fully recognize that we still have to ensure that services can be delivered in the other ways as well, whether it's over the phone or in person. One of the things we like to say, and we've got this nifty little chart that we show, the different types of services that can be done by.
We lost you.
I think we're losing Susan again. I think if I'm to complete her sentence for her, I think what she was saying is, it's really looking at the different channels by which you can deliver services by and how you do that. I think.
But then there's the services that have to be
Susan, you may have to drop out for a second.
done by people and by putting for that, one-on-one interaction. And that's really what it's all about.
Well, sorry about that.
I want to add on to that really good thought of Sean's, and I don't want people to feel unwelcome at town facilities. These are their facilities. I want to still maintain a very welcoming environment so that people are comfortable, right, coming in to do their business or to use a facility or to just be in that space. That we're not losing touch with folks.
That's great. Yeah, and one of the things that we've heard before too, and it's on that note, is the whole notion that if you're able to serve those that want to be served online through self-service, then you've got a better opportunity to provide additional service that those require it in person. And I think it goes together well that way. Marg, did you have some other thoughts for this question?
I think it's been covered off very well. I mean, I think as we become more digital, our back of house has to be very solid, right? The more you encourage reliability on digital means of service or knowledge acquisition, the more you have to make sure that you're building that on a very solid base of technology that's not going to fail, because then you're failing a lot of people a lot of the time, and that's always not the situation you want to be in.
Thank you. And Susan just sent me a note saying that she's lost her hotspot now. So
Oh, it's a bad technology night for her.
yeah. So I will move on to the next question that we had here then. Is there anything we should be doing to make sure that we're successful as we head down this digital path? Have you seen lessons learned in places that you think we need to bring forward to this? What can't we be forgetting about as we go forward down a digital journey here?
I jump in on that one to say communication.
Sure.
I think it's gonna have to be really clear to the residents in Tecumseh what are the digital initiatives that are being undertaken in the priority, and also communicating to the points that were made about the hybrid approach, where it isn't a replace, but it is an enhancement. I think that the communication and change is going to be really, really key.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I don't know, there's just the whole piece about, and some of you may have heard of omni-channel or multi-channel as delivery sort of mechanisms across services. And really what I'm finding more and more is it's about identifying the channels that are best suited for your constituents and to meet the customer base you have. So the notion that, it can be very exhaustive to try and provide the same level of service across all the different channels. But if you're at least able to focus your services on the channels that the customers require, you're going to have your best opportunities for success with that. So it's things to think about. How are you aiming for the channels that you've got here? So Kevin, thank you for your comment there. Councillor Dowie, I saw you're unmuted, so that's great.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Part of me says it might be valuable to have a scorecard, and even one that compares us versus other municipalities. We don't have the needs that some places do. So it sometimes makes sense to not make as a particular investment. But then on the flip side, it also shows that we've considered the service, and that there's some sort of reason why we didn't introduce it. Because we want to be on top, and we want to show that and demonstrate that we are a technologically advanced community. It's really the rural broadband strategy factors into that. But say just that performance measurement, and not to say it just, it's not important that we do everything everyone else does, but that, we consider what services are most value to us, and focus on them. And that Rome wasn't built in a day, and so it's get the big ones, the big initiatives that are the most important, just prioritized and developed, and we'll get to the rest in due time. So that's the kind of my main thought of it, because we don't want to do too much. We don't want to buy different pieces of software that, like, I'd rather have a single login and a single portal for things, but anyway, just my random thoughts.
So with that, just on that, scorecard can mean a variety of different things. Are you thinking about a prioritized or an actioned a list? So if there was a service inventory for Tecumseh, that really what you're saying is that we're putting out information, because the score, and are you thinking about a public facing scorecard or more one utilized by staff to achieve some of this?
I think there's benefit to having a public one. Maybe it doesn't have to be as exhaustive, but yeah, I think of something that would be, a 311 app where you take a photo of a broken traffic sign or a burnt out street light, and then port it through. Well, maybe just a photo, and just taking the photo and submitting on the website would be better. So it, given how we lay things out. So one thing I've witnessed over the years is always wanting to do something new and innovative, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if it may not work for us. And one that comes to mind very easily, nothing to do with electronics, but ranked ballots. I can't tell you how many people I talked to in my circle who said, yeah, we got to get ranked ballots. We did the public consultation, no one wanted them. And then after the fact, why didn't you rank ballots? Well, our community doesn't want them. That's why. We did a consultation, we tried, and it's not something that's a priority for us. So going to this elusive 311 app that I hear a lot about, why don't you guys do this? Well, do we need to invest in that? Well, can't you just take a photo with your phone, submit it on the site, or email it to a certain address? Is that not, just as good? Rather than developing all these other channels to try and bring service forward. I think keeping them constrained and centered on the website, where you can find everything, is a better direction. And so that's kind of what my thought was on the scorecards. Like, we don't need to do everything that others do, but what we do should have value to our residents.
That's not unlike, Andrew, that's not unlike the site that I was talking about on the City of Barrie's website, where, if somebody has a question about ranked ballots and say, well, Tecumseh should do ranked ballots because of X, Y, and Z. And then we see what the community conversation is around that, and whether they get whatever threshold council might set. Say for Tecumseh being smaller than Barrie, you might go 250 instead of 500. And then you start to look at it. But then your folks can see whether that idea is getting traction or not. And that answers the question for them as to why the town isn't looking at it, is because there's only 10 people that think that it's important,
Yeah,
that's a very good point.
And that comes up a lot with, why don't we have why doesn't the town do XYZ? It's like, well, it's because there isn't a plurality of people that actually want this to happen and are to divert our efforts in that direction. So, and technology and doing this is much the same.
Darren, Amy, I'm looking at different sides of the screen now just to see other thoughts that we may have.
Well, I think I was just going to sort of reiterate what Marg already said about the, if we're going to move forward and what should we be doing to make sure we're successful is, again, the robustness and the stability of the platform. You don't want to roll out anything that's not 100% stable. You're just going to upset people. People will be getting on and the site's crashing, or things aren't going through as they want, or stuff is sort of half done. You have to really test the stability of the platform before you roll it out to the public. Because I think people get frustrated enough with some online stuff and maybe not finding what they're what they want quickly and easily. And I think if you frustrate people with it, it'll take a long time to get them to return to it. And if you roll it out and it's stable, it works quickly and it works easily the first time.
Thank you. Amy, I saw you go like this, but I just thought I'd do a double check.
No comment. Thank you.
You're welcome. Marg, did you want to add anything in addition to there?
I'm just wondering, I guess, and maybe this is a question for you and Susan to give us an opinion on, but kind of launching from what Darren just said, what would you recommend in terms of trying something, different or new? Should we be trying to get some people to beta test it beforehand? What's the best way to work out the bugs before we go live, so to speak, so that we're ensuring our success? I mean, we want to be successful to the point of your question.
Yeah, and there's different routes of doing it. The method you mentioned in Barrie is almost a way to sort of get a sense of what people are looking for. With delivery of online services, I find a lot of it's about setting expectations. So in the situation where you're offering something that there's going to be a high level of requirement for security and stability. So for example, program registration, you want to make sure everything goes along as planned. When you're offering up some other things more on what I'd call a trial basis or a proof of concept, if you've sort of set that expectation that you're trying something net new, you want to see how it works, and you're going to be taking more of an agile approach to how you're introducing it, then that's where you get a different group of people coming along with you because they see what you're trying to work towards that way as well. So there's different, I almost treat it as two things. One is putting a structure in place or starting to create the culture where people feel they can contribute and provide feedback to how you're providing services and see that they're seeing the services that they think are most important getting delivered. And that almost plays in as well to what Councillor Dowie was saying. So if you have a digital experimentation place, then is it sort of taking in those ideas? Are you delivering on it? Are you able to display what you've put out that way? That's one side of it. The other is when you do release things, you're releasing them with a standard and you're releasing them using sort of best of breed for the particular things you need to. Security is becoming very paramount these days. Privacy, and again, in Canada, it still needs to be adjusted a bit more. European Union is all there's the general data protection legislation that's out there, and that's coming our way. So there's a certain amount of standards that need to be delivered into all the technologies that go out there. And a big thing is making things repeatable. So if you have if I'm a resident and I go on and I complete a dog license form today, I want it to be a familiar process when 2 days from now I go on and I fill out my license for a fire permit. And just getting the same sort of feeling for something and how it works through becomes very important. So a lot of these things are the characteristics of what you need to develop in the types of tools you put out to the public. And that's, we've started working on building those lists for you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Andy, what I've got out of this, very, very informative, and I've heard loud and clear with, and going back to Kevin's, using the word communication. Some of the yellow stickies we do offer online, but we've done a poor job of conveying that to the public. So even though we've gone through the steps, taken the initiative, purchased the product, set it up, and if people still don't know at the end of the day that it's there, we've done a poor job of communicating that to the public. So whether it's a weekly or monthly, did you know, app of the month or something like that, and even if we, like you say, repeatable, do that once, cycle it every 6 months or 12 months. And did you know our mapping website is this, or taxes are found here, that kind of thing. And promoting that to the public, because you take all that time and investment to set it up to make it easier. But if people don't know how to get to it or don't know it's even there, then we've done a poor job of. So yeah, this has been very helpful in that regard tonight, and that we can do a better job of communicating this to our residents.
That's great. Excellent. Well, we're almost at an end.
Well, Andy, sorry, just let me piggyback on Sean there.
Sure.
And I don't know if you guys may want to do this, but after you take all the decisions and you kind of have decided on a schedule of it, maybe share the roadmap, right, with the residents, right, so they know this is what's supposed to come down the road, and it kind of builds an anticipation for it and a bit of accountability, and gives you time to inform them and make sure they're aware.
And that's a Marg and Sean comment right there. So just how we're bringing this information back. Thank you for that, Kevin. We are drawing towards 8 o'clock right now. And by the way, if anybody has any great topics they want to discuss, I'm very happy to stay on and discuss those. But very quickly, those were our questions for tonight. Does anybody have any other questions, comments they want to provide that the questions really didn't get to or ask? And again, I'm just going to do this really as a quick roundtable around here, make sure everybody's got an opportunity if they wanted to include something in. Amy, I'll start with you. Anything else you would want to add into this mix right now?
Nothing comes to mind. Thank you.
Terrific. Great. Thank you. Darren?
No, I think you covered it. Thanks a lot to both of you for the presentation you put forward. It's certainly very informative. So thank you.
Terrific. Kevin?
No, I'm fine. Thanks.
Great. Councillor Dowie?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Eddie.
Great. Marg?
I think this has been a very helpful conversation for me. I'm happy to hear from the public that we have on, as well as yourselves and Councillor Dowie. So I appreciate the evening. Thanks very much. I don't have anything further at this time.
Excellent. Great. I'll put it back over to Sean in a second, but I wanted to, on behalf of Paragroup, I want to thank everybody for making it out tonight. All of this is very helpful, and it does feed into what we're working on, and we will make sure it's all sort of accounted for in the information we're putting together. Our next steps as we move forward, we've had the survey, we wanted to do this engagement, we're having some conversations with staff, and then that accumulates together into a report, and the report will then be presented forward to council. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much again for everybody coming out. Sean, did you want to say anything as a final close here?
Yeah, thanks, Andy, and thanks, Susan. She's sending her regrets by text again. She still doesn't have power, so hopefully she'll stay warm tonight. But yeah, very extremely grateful for all your participation tonight. And the mix on this panel was, I think, the perfect mix. You know, we have council, our CAO, some administration, the consultants, and most importantly, the input from the public and our residents, which is the most valued of all, and very eye-opening tonight. And I think we got a lot of stickies on that board. I didn't think we'd have that many with the small group, but a really good conversation and a very worthwhile evening, I think. And again, to echo Mark's comments and Andy's, thank you so much for joining us. And we will do our best to communicate out the future of this project in the next few weeks as it's the final report goes to council. So thanks again.
And Kevin, if you have any questions in your deliberations about moving to Tecumseh, please reach out. We're happy to answer them and do what we can to help you make a sound decision. It's a beautiful community. You'd really love it here.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. I'll take you up on that.
All right.
Okay. So with that, we'll bid everybody a good evening and thanks again for your participation tonight. Well, this is recorded, and for those that couldn't make it, we will be putting it on our YouTube channel in the coming days for others to pick up on the discussion and keep the momentum going with this project. So thanks again. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Good night.